Welcome to Leadership Sovereignty. I'm your host, Terry Baylor, along with Ralph Owens. Today, we'll discuss topics: what is true leadership, understanding your words and the feelings of those words, the power of agreement through partnership, and the atmosphere of servant leadership versus authoritarian leadership. Enjoy the show. The easiest way you can determine whether you're in a situation where there's true leadership is it that person who is in charge? Are they serving?
Mm-hmm.
Are they serving?
Yeah. And that brings up a good concept that, what does leadership look like? Right? What does true leadership look like? Does it look like commanding? It could, depending on the situation. Because there's sometimes you have to know when you have to go into command mode to get things done. It could be to save a life. That's not the time for you to try to, get up and close and personal with somebody. You may have to, and that may be the way of serving them in the moment, right? So we're not trying to discount that. But what does true leadership look like? It looks exactly like Terry said. It looks like serving. Even in that moment, you're still serving that person. They may not figure it out until later on after you get them out of harm's way that, you really trying to look out for me, right? But most of the time, it's not in command mode. It's in leading mode, right? I'm going to go ahead of you and I'm asking you to come with me. We walking in the same direction together. I'm not telling you to go do something, then report back to me. No, so I think it's so important that as we continue to talk about what does leadership look like, I sit in meetings sometimes and I hear people say, well, let me back up. You have to be very careful with the words that you say because it what's the word I'm looking for? It gives off a certain feeling to other people because people can feel who you are better than they can hear who you are. Right.
Wow.
So if I sit in meetings with some pretty powerful people and I hear them saying, my this and I that communicates something to people around the table. But when you say we this and our that also communicates something to people around the table. And if you hear certain words like that enough, I and mine, people around the table who have issues with their ego, they're going to start having an issue with you. Right? It's hard for you to be mad or in disagreement with someone who is speaking for all of us together as a team. Right? But when you say I, now you make yourself a target. Right? So and again, that's not to say that there won't be times where you need to stand up for what you believe specifically. Right? But in influencing people, if you go in talking about only what you want to do, what I want to do, what's mine and this and that, this and that, this and that, then you start to alienate people. When you say ours, now you bring them together and you're partners in this. You get more agreement out of a partnership than you do if in opposition. Right. So, just talking about, what does leadership look like? Things like that. I mean, what things come to mind for you, Terry?
The first thing that comes to mind, Ralph, is when you think of the leader that or the person in charge that you're following, do you feel as if they are, if they're commanding, does it conjure fear simply? Right. I mean, it's pretty simple, man. I mean, we've, I've been in the workforce, man, for over 30 years. And I can list every single leader that I've worked for and those who had an authoritarian type mantra and those who didn't, right? And from what I see, right, historically, those who were authoritarian, really folks, quite honestly, they just didn't enjoy those environments. They were very stressful. They were very accusatory, a lot of finger pointing. And that, again, right, that's both in my corporate career, that's in sports, I've worked in non-for-profits. It's pretty much across the board, right? And those folks who were more servant style leaders, from what I saw, those teams went the extra mile with joy, right? Versus, even in the authoritarian style, folks still go the extra mile, but they hate it the whole time.
That's right.
Right? There's no
That's right.
joy in it. The teams aren't they aren't having much fun. There isn't a lot of camaraderie. They don't want to spend time with each other. They don't want to be in the environment. It is simply a 9 to 5 gig. It's
Right.
simply that. Now,
Right.
granted, those teams, again, business is going, unless you're being successful, then there's going to be a massive level of turnover. And I'll say this, on those authoritarian type ships that I have had to, kind of work on, there has been a tremendous amount of turnover in those places, right? So operationally, there is impact. Economically, there is impact. So just, and the only reason I'm pointing this out, right? It's, we can lead from the seats we're in, and it's just to identify and understand the type of environment that you're working in. Because again, the goal for everyone here is to one day be that leader, right? So if we can identify what good leadership looks like, right? Take notes, write it down, identify, and man, this brings to mind. So this was, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And Shamika and I, Elizabeth was playing softball, and this was early on, and we were reading this book by Jimmy and Karen Evans. I think you may know that name, but anyway, and in this book, again, it was a marriage book, but he termed a phrase, and I thought, oh, that's brilliant. I need that because my daughter's just now starting to play sports. And, with all the stuff that we've been hearing about coaches and this and that. And the term was coined in this book, unrighteous leadership. And so that was important to understand because now I could give it a term and also equip my daughter, right? Who's going to start playing sports. This is what righteous leadership looks like.
Right.
And this is what unrighteous leadership looks like. And so
Yeah.
I just started going down the list, man. Okay, you have righteous. I started at the most common thing for us, right? You have righteous preachers and you have unrighteous preachers. I said you have righteous coaches and you have unrighteous coaches. You have, and just down the list, right? Every form of leadership. And so that empowered us as parents, right, to start framing for our children what good leadership looks like. So now my kids will come to me and say, hey, Dad, I was in a situation like this and this person did this. I don't believe that was right. I said, son or daughter, you've identified that, in the correct way. Now, on an EQ standpoint, how did you respond? Right? From your personal, how it impacted you and your who you are as a person, how did that impact you? So now how do we strategize to move forward? But in recognizing these things, right? And understanding that you're going to have righteous leadership, unrighteous leadership. And to develop methodologies, to your point earlier, Ralph, a few episodes back, you have to know how you are going to respond in those moments. Don't wait to the moment to try to figure it out, right? Let's have an idea beforehand. Here's the thing, right? I had a young man, I just had a conversation here over the last, week or so about a gentleman who went through a tough time, right? And the number one thing I shared with him is, look, those kind of leaders are everywhere. right? You can get to another job. You're just, man, look, you are one promotion or one company transition away from having that person, that guy, that gal, right? But again, if you know who you are, right? If you know who you are and the situations won't dictate your response. You've already your response is already predetermined. Mainly because you know who you are. You don't have to operate in fear, right? I'm going to take it back. You don't have to operate in fear. And this is probably the best piece of advice that I can probably give on this. Even though there's a person who may seemingly from a natural standpoint not deserve it, we can still treat that person in a way that, I'm going to go back to my affirmation, I operate in love towards myself, my family, and everyone I encounter. Now, let me be very clear on something. Operating in love doesn't mean I'm a doormat.
Right. That's right. That's
right.
Yeah.
Operating in love is, look, this I'm going to make it simple, right? I got kids, so we got all kind of nursery rhymes. We go honor up, honor down, honor all around.
That's it.
That's how I'm going to show that love. I'm going to honor up, I'm going to honor down, I'm going to honor all around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to honor you. I'm going to honor the role that you're in, right?
Yep.
You as a person could be you're just not a good person. Sometimes it's like that. But what I will do is honor the role that you're in, be the best version of myself that I can be, right? Because when I'm doing that, I'm loving myself, right? Thank you for being with us today on Leadership Sovereignty. Stay connected with us on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram by searching for Leadership Sovereignty. And just like this podcast, let's all collectively grow as we go. God bless.